Welcome to another episode of the S.E.M podcast. Jack Bryce and Zach Hewlett are here again, and today we're joined by the famous Christopher Pattenden. Christopher Colin Pattenden, if you want to know his middle name. So.
The famous, in the words of Preston Breens.
That's
very true.
That's how the intro would have come across, so had to do some honor there to President Brains.
Yeah.
How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing really well. Sorry that it's taken me 18 months for you to finally make a commitment out of me. It's funny. I still remember the first time, Zach, you emailed me, and I don't know why. I was hesitant. I've thought about it a lot, and there's several times I felt to commit to doing it, but I've really enjoyed listening to everybody else, and I'm glad that I've waited, because there's a few things that we're going to need to straighten out. Not everyone's memories have served them as correctly as I would have hoped. So I'm glad that I got to wait a little longer.
All right,
love it.
And where are you calling from today?
Chorley, Lancashire, North England. So I'm about 3 miles from the Preston Temple. So that's where I've been since I came home from my mission.
Yeah, I think most of our listeners will know about where that's at. So very good.
That's right.
Yeah. When I was in the MTC, I never dreamt that I'd be living here the next 20 years after my mission. So it was kind of crazy to come back after my mission and have that. But yeah.
Well, start us off with how you ended up on the mission and finding out you're going to Scotland. That story.
Well, it'll be a little disappointing, because there's a kind of a common theme among us Brits that are called to Scotland that I heard, and I thought, why I want to tell the story slightly differently, be a bit different, but the story's the same. I was pretty disappointed to be called to Scotland. So going back, I grew up in the church. A mission was on the cards from whenever I can remember, as young as I can remember. My parents had moved us from our family home in North Wales, which is where I'd grown up most of my life, and taken us to Portsmouth on the south coast of England. And so I was only 16, 17 when that happened. And so it was a little bit of a rocky period for me. I was a little frustrated with my parents, and so I had a little bit of a rebellious streak. Nothing too Sodom and Gomorrah, but just a little bit of finding my way through those later teenage years. But 18 came around, and Melchizedek priesthood. It was kind of just a matter of course. And the mission came up, and I just went. I had received a blessing from my father's blessing. That had indicated, it was back when I was 16, that it was important that I left for my mission on time. I didn't really know what that meant or why. It was poignant. My parents kept pointing it out. And I've wondered ever since if my father, if that was his will or if it was Heavenly Father's will. I'm not sure. But, that message of go on time meant that I made sure that I was on time. So my papers were in as soon as I could, and then waiting on the call. And then about April, I think it was, when I did get the call to Scotland. Just initially, I said to people that I was happy to go anywhere in the world except Scotland. I really wanted to go to Ireland if I was going to stay in the UK. I'd wanted to go to Australia my whole life. Growing up, I thought that'd be really cool. So anyway, Scotland comes. Literally only maybe about 24 hours of disappointment before I start researching Scotland and realize that I actually know nothing about it. And very naive Englishman thinking that Scotland is just, the northern part of England. Terrible. I know. But I eventually just very quickly got this sense of, wow, there's so much culture and so much history and so much to love about Scotland that, it only took about 24 hours before I was just really pumped and excited to be going up there.
Cool. So
brought me there.
That was April of 2003, and then
yes, that's right, April 2003, and then I entered the MTC 9th of July 2003.
Okay, great. Well, let's go July 2005. Then what you been up to since then? Get us caught up a little bit.
This is part of the conversation I was dreading having. I think my life has stood still. I don't think I. So as many people will probably know, I came back, went to university in Preston. I was convinced I wanted to teach at the MTC. Ever since being in the MTC was just something that really I felt connected to. I had a young men's advisor as a young man that had been an MTC teacher and was in the MTC when I was there. So I knew it was a job. So I kind of planned school around the fact that I wanted to come back and teach at the MTC. Did that, came back, taught there. Was only there about 18 months before I had my first kind of leadership opportunity within the MTC structure there. Became a lead teacher and then a training supervisor about a year after that. So all the while I'm studying human resource management at the University of Central Lancashire. I learned something really important during my degree, and it's always worth learning this whilst you're studying. And I learned that I had no interest in being a human resource manager. And so here's 3 years of studying human resource management, and I knew that's not what I wanted to do. But the thing is, I didn't know what I wanted to do. So the opportunity to keep working for the church just kept presenting itself until 2008, when I got the opportunity to work there full time in a permanent position as their training supervisor. And I'll talk about the rest in just a moment. But there are some other really important things that happened in those years, and that is I met my sweetheart, beautiful wife, Rachel. That was in 2006. We got married in 2007, November 2007. So we're just coming up on 17 years marriage. We've had 3 beautiful children. Just don't know how I've been so blessed to have such amazing kids. They get their beauty and their good looks from their mother, and they get their brains from their mother as well. So I don't bring much to the table. Hopefully a little bit of spirituality, but
that's rubbish, and you know that, Chris.
Yeah, so just been really, really blessed. So then, I kind of was at this point in my life where it was like, I've got a choice. I can either make a lot of money, or I can work for the church. I, for some crazy reason, went for the latter and decided that I was going to make a career with the church. At that time, I didn't quite anticipate how long I'd stay at the MTC. I didn't think it would be I just didn't know what life would look like. Where do you go to after being an MTC training supervisor? But a couple of years later, they opened a position called MTC manager, and this basically was the equivalent of the MTC president, but on the employment side. So the MTC is kind of divided into 2. So you have like the ecclesiastical leadership, and then you have the employed leadership or management. So I worked alongside the MTC president then, and I was successful in becoming the MTC manager at that time. So that was in about 2010. I'd been serving as the bishop for about just a couple of months at that point as well in my ward. So yeah, here I am, 25, called as serve as the bishop. Ridiculous, the things that they do to you. At the time, I can honestly say I was pretty chuffed. It was exciting. It was a new adventure. It was one of the largest wards in Europe. We had about 300 active members, which was pretty good going for the UK. We were right there in the temple site. There was 3 wards at the time who were meeting in the same building. So yeah, I'd been called as bishop, then made the manager, and really for the next 15 years, I just lived, breathed, drank church. And I made that sound like that was a bad thing, and then there were aspects of that which were challenging. But between leadership assignments and then working at the MTC and being there on the temple site, that was kind of the next 15 years of my life, and it was amazing. There were challenges, but it was incredible. Incredible experiences, opportunities to keep meeting people from the mission. You're right there in Preston, so that's the Scottish Temple District. So every time people came to the temple, I got to maintain relationships with a lot of people that I taught, met, and grown to love in Scotland. And even being an MTC teacher to one of the young men that we baptized and taught, so he then goes on a mission, comes to the MTC, which was incredible.
Wow.
To be there when a family come back to church that we taught, try to reactivate, and then they finally did come back years later. And then because I'm right there, I was able to be there when they were all sealed together as a family. So yeah, that was some real choice opportunities and blessings that came from being there right at the temple site and being engaged in the work in that way. But then you don't have much variety in your life because it's just all very one dimensional. I have no hobbies. As my wife attests to, I have no interests, beyond church and work. So
I don't believe that for a second. I'm sure you've got plenty of things going on. I mean, you've got your kids, you've got life in general that's got to keep you busy beyond just running around and doing things that are church related.
Well, I believe it, Chris. I believe you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, because there's people that I had to learn the hard way how to find balance. Life has taught me some lessons, and finding balance and finding other things is important. Stretching yourself academically, which is something I've looked to do, and life changed quite a bit for me in the last 2 years, which I'll touch on, because that side of life really felt like an extension of my mission. So if I was really honest, I would say I didn't feel like I really grew up. It was only 6 months ago did I put all my mission things away.
Wow.
Like they've been in my office at the MTC, they've been out. I've been telling mission stories, and I think on reflection, this is part of why I probably put you off a little bit, is because it was not really novel for me to come on and reminisce. And I've really enjoyed listening to other people talk about the mission and realize, it doesn't feel like remembering 20 years ago, because I literally have told many of these stories every week to missionaries for the last 19 years, new missionaries coming to the MTC. And that's a blessing. But yeah, so I 6 months ago had the opportunity to switch gears in church employment. And to go from the young, the vibrant, and the living, which is missionary work and young missionaries at the MTC, to the other side of the veil, and that's working for the dead with the nearly dead, senior service missionaries, and working for Family Search, which is quite the contrast. I still all the work of salvation, which I love. Still part of the gathering, but just a different aspect of it. And it's been an interesting journey. I packed up my office, packed all my mission things up 6 months ago, and they finally went into a box in the garage for the first time. And I feel like as I always threatened to do, I grew up and got a real job. I've just been this perpetual MTC teacher for 19 years, and that was incredible. But now we're working for Family Search as the operations manager for the Europe North area. So we've got about 13, 14 countries in this area, Northern Europe now. And we support all of the Family Search operations, the users, everybody engages in the Family Search website. We've got a team of a couple hundred service missionaries that I support and work with. And quite different, but you're really enjoying it. So that's me.
But you're still officed somewhere locally in Chorley, or you travel a lot?
So my office, this is my office here at home, and because I travel and because of my workers role remote, and so I'm out and about traveling and just predominantly based from home now, and that's been a massive blessing. That's been really, really different. The MTC was interesting. It was very stressful, actually. I didn't realize how stressful it was until I left, but the MTC runs 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. It's relentless. There's just constantly missionaries there. There's always something that could go wrong. You're making sure that you've got teachers to teach, and you've got missionaries arriving on airplanes, and they get through border force and immigration, and make sure they've got food to eat, and there's hot water in the showers, and and you're just, that operational aspect of the MTC is just forever going. And so now it's a little different. I finished work at 5:00, and as they tell me when I started working at Family Search, there's no rush. They're all dead anyway. So you just, I'm I'm not sure that everyone sees it that way, but we can take a slower pace. So
That's
Awesome.
good.
Very cool.
Tell us a little bit more about your kids. What genders, ages, what you got there?
yeah, I'd love to. They're my. Can I share a picture? Let's
Sure.
see.
Yeah,
I
you
don't
can share your
believe-
screen here.
Let's see.
And for anyone who is listening that doesn't follow Chris Pattenden on Facebook, he's a pretty valiant poster of fun things that his family's up to. So I enjoy keeping up with the Pattendens via my social media for sure.
Which picture are you seeing right now?
We see the whole thing right now.
Yeah, you got your whole
Oh.
screen. There you go.
Can you see that?
Yep.
There's the family. Yep.
Yeah, there you go. So this was taken a couple of months ago. So we've got my wife Rachel to the left of me, and then my arm on my right side is Grace. Grace is 16. She's just absolute joy of our lives. She is as gentle and as mild and as loving as they come. She is clever and sensitive and artistic, and we just absolutely love her. Caleb is on my wife's left side. Caleb is 14. He again is just the joy of our family. He brings so much fun and vibrancy. He's energetic. They're very different. All kids are different, aren't they? All got their own personalities. But Caleb is he's very outgoing, very outdoorsy, very sporty, and just a comedy gold. You know, we love him. And then Hope, she's our youngest. She's 11, just about to turn 12, and she kind of was in that age, that really vulnerable age during the pandemic, and it was very impressionable, and that had a massive impact. You know, the UK obviously had a lot of restrictions, a lot of lockdown, a lot of fear mongering, as we all experienced, I think. And that was a massive impression on her. But she is just a bundle of joy. I don't know where she gets her wit from. Very quick, very funny. I just have been blessed with just amazing kids. So yeah, that's our tiny little family right there. Let's see.
That's great.
Slightly more up to date picture there, and maybe this was just taken a couple of weeks ago. These pictures. So yeah, just gorgeous kids.
Beautiful family there, Chris. Thanks for sharing that. All right. Well, let's go back now to the beginning of the mission. We'll go through companions, areas. It's really whatever you want to talk about. And I was thinking, preparing for this, you know, you're probably the most known guest we'll have on this podcast just because of your work. You've seen everybody who's come through, and so people know you from your mission time, but they know you from after too. So
yeah, from at the MTC.
Yeah.
Yeah, they may know me. I'm not sure how many of them that I know. Had a couple of thousand missionaries that have come through there. Yeah. So 9th of July, arrive at the MTC. Let's see, we've got Michael Deaton. Boy, I'd love to have him come on, but he's got a few stories to tell. Mark Rittman, you've already had on. They're my two and my MTC companions. In the MTC was me as well. It was Simon White. We need to get him on. Haven't had Simon White, right?
Not yet.
No.
We have had contact with him. We'll get him on.
Yeah, well, maybe I'll send him a note as well. Sister Laird, Sister Cahoon, they were in the MTC with me as well. Great MTC experience. The MTC for me, like I said, I fell in love with it right there and then, which is why I knew that I wanted to be part of my future. I wasn't entirely sure how it was going to be, but it was a big impact. One of the things I remember, and I think Mark Rittman talked about this in his interview, that we really learned to love to sing the hymns of Zion. I actually learned that is an MTC thing. You know, working there then afterwards, missionaries gain this passion for singing. I don't know if it's for everyone, but it's quite common. It's the first time that you actually sang, I think. You know, you've mumbled your way through church up until that point, and then you start to sing. But we had I remember how Firma Foundation became like some kind of MTC anthem for our district, and and has been for many years in my life thereafter. Choice experiences. I remember couple of interesting things about the MTC. I was in this trio, so it was Rittman, myself, and Deaton, and I was a wanderer. I didn't. It was like if you were in this tri-companionship, then it meant that basically one of you could always be with somebody else if you wanted to be, right? So I think I probably frustrated Elder Rittman and Elder Deaton a little bit because I just attached onto other companionships because I was always in a trio. It didn't matter where we went. But I loved working and serving with them. Elder Rittman had an iPod. And now that doesn't sound like anything these days. Well, that actually already sounds old, doesn't it? But in 2003, I remember seeing this Apple iPod that held 10,000 songs. And, here he comes. And I just think it's the coolest piece of tech I've ever seen in my life. And I'm thinking there aren't 10,000 church songs to put on this thing. And yeah, that's true. And that's not what was on there. he had the best country music. And I'm sure that there's a spectrum of what's right and what's wrong, when it came to music in the mission. But I remember starting to gain a love for country music. Never been to America, never heard country music. That's where I started to learn to love it. Was right there in the MTC.
That's great.
So yeah, amazing experience. We got the train, as everybody quite rightly remembers. It was the train at that time. You get to the end of the MTC and the train on up to Scotland. I remember that being a really beautiful journey, and really excited to get up there. I'd had an MTC teacher that had told us, he wasn't my teacher, but he was covering a class one day, and he told us about a couple of missionaries who got held by knife point in Glasgow, that he'd heard about, right? So here's me in the MTC, and all I know is that I don't want to go to Glasgow because, that's the scary. I mean, fancy telling this scary story, to missionaries just on the way up to Scotland, and I just thought, yeah, man, I don't want to go to Glasgow. So we get up there and we get to the mission office, and of course we've got all the things that go on with that. That was really kind of a neat experience, right? You meet the Marines for the first time, you have a meal together, you get an interview with President, Sister Marines is there, Sister Black, which prepares great food, and I just remember loving the mission home, thinking it was just the best place. It's funny because later on, I thought it was a cool experience. Later on, Sister Marines commented to me that day that I arrived in the mission home, I had about 5 packages and about 10 letters that had already been sent ahead of me getting there. And so I'm sitting on the sofa and I've just got all these packages. And she's telling me this story maybe 4 or 5 months later. And she's saying, the Pattenden, I remember you sitting there, you were on the sofa, you had all this mail, you just looked tired and worn out. She says, and I looked at him and she said, boy, he's not going to make it. This missionary is not going to make it. I was like, yeah, I didn't remember. It was a good day for me. I didn't remember feeling like that. But some vibe I was getting off, Sister Grace didn't think I was going to make it. And I also remember
she probably thought you had baggage at that point because of all the people that were yearning for you to be back at home, right?
Yeah.
you were their first group too.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, and cool. Yeah. So I mean, I was probably like, as she saw missionaries come after me, she realized that I was actually the best of all of them. Yeah, it's as good as it gets. Another thing I was thinking about in reflection for today was my interview with President Marines. And again, growing up in the church, and I thought I understood the gospel, and I had this pretty good understanding of how to teach it. I felt like I felt confident with that during the MTC. And so President Marines asked me to bear my testimony to him during our interview together. So it's just the two of us, and I shared my testimony with him. I don't remember what I said, but I thought it was a pretty good testimony. And he just looked at me and he kind of slapped his hands down on his leg and he says, "Well, Elder, it's about to get a lot stronger than that." And I just remember thinking, what did I say wrong? It kind of haunted me for a couple of months afterwards. I was like, was there something weak in what I said? And, actually I came to realize that he knew exactly what he was talking about. It was nothing to do with what I had said wrong in that moment. It was just him seeing the beauty of what the mission was about to bring. And so that was quite a poignant moment. He kind of saw into that in each of us, the potential and where we were going to go. That's something I really, really loved and admired.
That's awesome.
So I get my worst fear. We're in the transfer room and in the Spiral Road and upper room top of the office, and they calling out the companions and I get Glasgow. We're going to Glasgow, city centre.
Really?
City centre. It was Rutherglen, Cambuslang area.
Okay.
It was just all I heard was Glasgow, and I just thought, oh, that's where I'm going to get knifed, because that MTC teacher told me the two missionaries that got kind of held with knife points. So I meet Arthur Bhutan, and I could wax lyrical about Elder Bhutan. That he's a dear friend, mentor, role model, just the greatest start to my mission. So he's assigned to be my trainer, and I remember we end up getting the train from Edinburgh back to Queen Street Station in Glasgow, and then we got a taxi from there. And I'm thinking, we go in, we put the suitcases down. I'm going to take a bath. I'm going to unpack. I'm just thinking, it's all this trauma of this first day and coming from the MTC, and Bhutan just literally just makes me drop my suitcases and takes me out to work. Like, we just go out knocking doors, chapping, and I was just furious. So I'm going to tell you, honestly, my feelings towards Bhutan in the first few weeks, which, the reason I started with how much I love him is because you wouldn't get that from the first few weeks, because this guy is just a workhorse. Like, he just is relentless. And when you listen to his podcast, then you realize what was going on for him in the few weeks before. Just to remind everyone, he'd had a companion that had some challenges, and they kind of been housebound for 6 weeks right before I got there. So he hadn't really been out. And so all of a sudden he's just wanting to tear it up. But I am this, exhausted, kind of overweight, missionary that haven't got the stamina to keep up with him. But he just went out. Yes, we went out that day, placed our first copy of the Book of Mormon, and got into a lesson, and he started teaching, and I'm just thinking he's going to take it all, and he gets to Joseph Smith, and he just looks at me, and just, kind of nod, you take over. And so I, fumbled my way through it, and I just remember going to bed that night just thinking, man, I can't do this every day for the next 2 years. This is going to be rough. And we get up, and there was a bakery around the corner, and he loved going in there every day for these scones, like these you call biscuits, right? I guess in the States, but like, he'd go in for this scone every morning, and he was just so friendly to everyone, and he kind of eat it, and then we'd walk the streets of Rutherglen and just smile, talk to everyone, and I'm thinking we're going from one place to the next, but we can't make any progress because he's like talking to every person we can't, and I'm seeing people with the men with their long hairs and their tattoos and their earrings and drinking and smoking. He's stopping them all, and I'm just this little naive LDS kid that just ain't got a clue. And I'm thinking, why are we talking to these people? They're not going to want to change. We get to this Catholic church, and he starts talking to people outside the Catholic church. They've just come out of mass, and I'm like, these people have got their own religion, leave them alone. And he just wants to talk to everyone. And that really is just how the next 6 months go. I was there 4.5 months with him. We just had some incredible experiences. And he kind of gave a pretty good dialogue of what happened in that area. But I just learned an incredible amount, set the work ethic, set the kind of the pattern and the tone for the rest of my mission. He was just a really, really amazing companion. He went off, so 4.5 months we were together. He went off then to Dalkeith, I think it was. He was called a zone leader. And Kofi Asariado comes. And yeah, contrast, big difference, but just love that guy to death. I mean, you'll hear me say that about all my companions. I really did. Kofi Elder Sariado was just funny. He was a fellow Brit. That was kind of neat. We had some things in common in that regard. Although originally from Ghana as well, so he had great culture to teach me about, and teaching me Twi, his dialect from Ghana. And you haven't had Kofi on here yet, right? Or have you?
No, not yet.
All right, he's another one we need to bub, right? It may, be patient. It may take 18 months, but they'll come eventually.
Or 2 years, or 3 years, or yes, we are patient. I can assure you that.
So Kofi, a couple of things I remember about him. Again, just a big smiler. And I think somebody else commented on this serving with him. He'd walk down the street and people would want to stop him. I remember this one lady said, I've been watching you now here day after a few days you've been here. She said, you just walk up and down and you just smile all the time. She says, what's that about? And we were able to teach her because he just was unapologetically himself, happy, and people just were endeared to that. And he good comedy. I mean, we were serving in the fall, so the nights were dark, and we'd go out chapping in the evenings. And here he is. He'd this great big smile, this beautiful black man from Ghana, and he'd kind of stand behind me sometimes when we were chapping doors in the dark. And so I'd be there at the door, and I'd knock the door. Somebody would come to the door, and they kind of squint because they could see somebody was behind me, but they couldn't quite see what was going on. And then he just stepped forward into the light, and he'd just say, "Sorry, was I blending?" And it just the way that he disarmed people just in this fun way. Just people would laugh, and then you should be able to, anyway. Just a master at people skills and being able to build and connect with people. That was only 6 weeks before I was moved on. So Cambuslang, that was 6 months. It was just a special place. We saw a couple of amazing people who joined the church during those 6 months, and I built relationships with people that would actually stay with me the rest of my mission. So there's kind of the rest of my mission connects right back to Cambuslang. So at this point, I'll tell you about this one lady. Her name was Dawn, or Ho Ying Wong. So she was a Chinese nurse. She'd been there in the country about 12 months, and we started teaching her. And she didn't speak any English, and so we were using Google Translate, and we were in the library. We'd go and try and get translations of the lessons. We'd meet her at the chapel. She was coming to church. She brought like 5 friends with her to church. We had this amazing experience. But then she left the area, so we didn't get to finish teaching her. So she moved to city center. So we made the referral, sent it onto those missionaries. And then I didn't really think much more about it. I didn't know what was going to happen. That was that. So and I'll pick back up on that again in just a moment. So I leave Rutherglen. I go to Stirling, where I'm going to whitewash, train Elder Darren Allen. So Elder Allen, just completely fresh out of the United States, as he quite rightly pointed out in his own podcast, for leaving States, I don't know, probably for the first time. He's coming to the UK, and the funniest thing, I remember he looked up, he said, I didn't know they had planes in Scotland. There was a plane flying overhead. I didn't know they had planes in Scotland. He'll deny that. He'll deny that he ever said that. But I remember it very well. And we whitewashed. And so we got off the train. I'd never been to the area. We didn't know where the flat was. This was kind of complete unknown. We got to the apartment. The elders that had been whitewashed out kind of said, left a note saying, sorry about the mess. And by the way, there's this young man called Brian. He's 17. He'll be at the church tonight, wants to meet you. So wants to meet with the missionaries. So that's all we knew. Put our suitcases down. Now all I knew how to train was what Bhutan had taught me. So, I did the exact same thing. I made poor Darren Allen, he's a short guy, and he's got his big suitcases, and he's carrying them himself through the streets of Stirling, and we dumped the suitcases, and I say, right, we're going to work, no rest, no bath, no relaxation. I just did what my trainer did. We went out to work. And we chapped doors and street contacted, and then finally made our way over to the chapel and met Brian Quinn. Now, I don't know if any of you served it around Alloa or Stirling area.
No.
Brian Quinn, 17 years old, just this incredible young man, loads of questions. Family were spiritualists. And so he already had a bit of a spiritual background. He'd come in connection with the previous missionaries, Elder Gibb, I think it was. And maybe, I think it was Elder Gibb. Anyway, we started teaching him and invited him to be baptized, actually in that first lesson. Here's me trying to show off with my new greenie, my new missionary. He says no, he doesn't want to be baptized. But then Friday night, we take him to a fireside in Edinburgh. And he comes up to me at the end. He says, I'll change my mind. I do want to be baptized. So literally, I was only in this area for 6 weeks. Darren Allen and I, we taught him all the lessons in the next 2 weeks. And it was just an incredible experience. Elder Allen got to witness that first kind of success story, I guess, in the mission field. He was baptized, and transfers came, and I left. And I went back to Glasgow, to city centre. So where I was able to immediately pick up with Dawn, who we'd been teaching. So yeah, really amazing. I remember several years after the mission, President Vreens came back and did a reunion that I helped organise here in it was actually the time of the pageant, 2013, and we had a bunch of missionaries around, and so I kind of hosted the Vreens for a few days. And I remember telling him, thanking him for his inspiration, and I said, how did you figure it out, President? How did you know exactly where to move me, from one place to the next, so that everything kind of all lined up at exactly the right time? And he just laughed and smiled at me. He said, Elder, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. He said, I just trusted the Spirit. He said, and he loved hearing the stories. But, I thought about it. I was like, yeah, like there was hundreds of us, and he was getting it right for all of us. I mean, that is amazing. Just all he had to do was be in tune with the Spirit. But to listen to him vulnerably say, I didn't know what I was doing. I just did my best and followed the Spirit. So there I was, yeah. So come back to Glasgow City Centre and start teaching Dawn again. And I'm companioned with Charles Fife. Again, just 6 weeks. He's shrunken out a little bit. He's come to the end of his mission. I was being made zone leader. I'd only been in the field 7.5 months. And so I was pretty, nervous, wasn't really sure what to do and what was expected. And at this time, Charles Fife pointed this out when he was being interviewed, that this time I was starting to have some mental struggles, which I didn't fully understand at the time. I met with the mental health professional, and it was maybe some depression, they thought, that was going on or something. But it had kind of reached this peak, and I had a pretty hard time. So they were a kind of tough 6 weeks. So coupled with taking on a new responsibility, going back to another area, coming off this high of having been in Stirling 6 weeks, really not sure why this kind of was happening. Charles was good. I was actually interested in listening to his podcast. I didn't realize that he picked up on it. I thought I'd hidden it. But he said, something wasn't quite right. And, he knew that was very sensitive of him. And, but I was able to get some advice and some help, and things started to pick up again. Rory Grant came right on the heels of him. So in Glasgow City Centre, with the Julian Avenue Award, Rory Grant comes, and again, Rory's got a hilarious story from the beginning of his mission. I think he told it where he goes home and then comes back, goes away and comes back. Well, what's interesting about Rory is that made him this ultra committed missionary. He when he came back, he was not going to waste a moment, and he didn't. And I think because I'd had a kind of a slow 6 weeks with Elder Fife, and I was going through some of those challenges, I think it kind of came across to Rory as laziness. There was I wasn't probably working at optimum level when he arrived. And we were also in Glasgow City Centre, where I didn't really believe in chapping. I felt like if you're in the city centre of Glasgow, street contacting, and you've got the biggest ward in Scotland, you should be working with the members. And there was always this feeling, of working with members. Was it a good thing? Was it a bad thing? Were we wasting time? Was it just laziness? But I really believed in it and wanted to do that. And so we didn't always see things eye to eye. I don't know. I don't think he told this story, and you're probably going to hate me for telling this story. I'm going to tell it anyway. One night, we're zone leaders. We've got the car, and we've got 2 missionaries living with us at the time, Elder Mace and somebody else. But anyway, we were on exchanges with the 2 missionaries. And so we're out knocking doors, and we get back to the apartment, and it's 9:30, and Elder Grant and whoever he was with haven't come home. So it's 9:45, and I'm like, I wonder, something's not quite right here. I was starting to get a bit nervous, and it's 10 o'clock. And so then I said, all right, we probably should go and have a walk around, see if we can find them, because they've got the car. And so we start walking the streets. Don't know what I was planning to do. I mean, they had a car. So I just felt like I didn't want to call President to say that there's 2 missionaries missing in Glasgow until I'd done something to try and find them. So it gets to 10:15, and I call President Vreens, and he wasn't available. So the assistant answered the phone. I said, I've got this issue. I said, I'm really sorry to say this, but my companion is missing with another missionary. And I don't know where they are. And the assistant says, I forget who it was, says, yeah, we know. They're here. I said, here as in, like, at the mission home in Edinburgh. And they're like, yeah. I'm like, seriously? What are they doing there? Like, what's happened? Said, we don't really know. He's just having an interview with President right now. So I'm thinking, man, what's going on? Like, this is like the bizarrest thing. So when President Vreens calls me back, he tells me to go home. So I go home. He calls me back. He says, now to Pattenden, he says, now you two, you're not necessarily seeing work in exactly the same way. And he's struggling with the way that you're working. And he'd just driven himself up to Edinburgh to have a conversation with President. and to kind of say he didn't love working with me. And I was like, man, that's really like all the way up there. So anyway, he says, now you just need to listen, you need to be sensitive, and you need to work a little harder. And so anyway, he's on his way home, and so he drove back, and we figured it out. We had a good time together. I have nothing but absolute love and admiration for Rory Grant. And
I was just looking at my notes, Chris. Was it Jeremy West that was the other missionary at that point?
Yes.
I love that. I love that I've kept notes because I have in my notes
times and location.
I have Jeremy was the person who said that he was in Springboig with Chris Mace, Chris Pattenden, and Rory Grant, and I,
there you go,
wrote it down. So let it be written.
That was a fun household. Household. I
can only imagine.
Yeah, we started doing deep fried transfers. And this had to be West's idea. I'm almost sure of it. Per night, we'd have a sleepover, even though, forgive me, President Vreens, we weren't supposed to have sleepovers, and we were the zoners. And we'd have sleepover. We'd all come around. We'd wait for the moves calls, transfer calls, but we would just decide to have a deep fry party. And so each transfer that I was there, we did this, and we deep fried everything from Twinkies to Skittles to Cadbury's cream eggs. Just a real Scottish fry experience. No idea why. Things that missionaries do. Yeah, that was a good experience. And then Grant left as well, and so I'm still there.
Before you move on, I want to give a shout out to you guys because that was my second area was Cumbernauld, and you guys were my district leaders or my zone leaders while I was there.
You know the Schmidt.
Yeah, for a long time. Like Elder Schmidt and I were together 4.5 months, and I think you guys were zone leaders most of that time.
I found this. I have no idea what this note card is for, but it's the camera's moving. But there you are, Bryson Schmidt.
Looking for your face. Yeah. Yep.
So I'll get this camera back. So I remember you being in Cumbernauld. Wasn't Martin Quick there around that time as well at some point?
So he trained Schmidt for 6 weeks and then went home. Then I came in there. Yeah.
I remember coming out to the Cumbernauld flat and the Cumbernauld exchanges out there with you guys.
Yeah. And you guys as leaders really showed me like, hey, you can be in leadership and have a good time and be friendly and like get work done too. So I really appreciated that. We were a really young companionship, 6 months and 6 weeks out there. And so the direction you gave, I really appreciated that. And you and Rory were a couple that I always looked up to, and we ended up, serving around each other in different areas that we had served in, and several exchanges that you and your companions and I went on. So that was good. That was kind of where I guess I got introduced to Chris Pattenden and his shoe fetish and all that. So
you say that again, shoe fetish.
Yeah, I think you had a new pair of shoes every time I saw you.
That's what all good British missionaries have, right? The thing is as a kind of an overweight missionary, there weren't very many ways to express myself, through nice suits and shirts. So I like to express myself through my shoes.
I was just jealous because they don't sell shoes my size in the UK, so I wasn't getting new shoes.
That's right. So true.
I got to tell you a funny story, Jack. I when this first launched 18 months ago, I didn't place your name immediately, and then I saw your picture on here, and with the beard and the lack of what's going on up there, I was thinking to myself, I can't picture who this was. And then I remember Bryson Schmidt from Cumbernauld, and I'm like, but he had this nice thick head of hair. Like this is things change, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I do have those good memories. And I stayed another 3 months in Glasgow. And Rory Grant went, and then Landon Ames came. And he's another one. Boy, I'd love for you to get him on here. Landon, just a real treat to serve with. But I was killing him off in mission language. He had 3 months left. He was coming to me as his first time as a zone leader. He'd served various places around the mission. His father, it was a cool story because his father was actually the stake president of President Hinckley's stake. So he had some pretty cool stories. So President Hinckley lived in the state boundaries of where his father was serving as the stake president. And when President Hinckley passed away, the funeral was actually conducted by Landon's dad. And I recognized and made that connection. And it was just it was a great experience. But it was fun as well. He also knew how to have fun. Or maybe am I getting this the wrong way around? Maybe Ames came after Fife, and then it was Grant. Do you remember, Jack?
I don't know. I think that would make more sense timeline-wise.
That would make more sense. Yeah, I think that probably was it. Anyway, funny story about Landon, where he arrives. Yeah, that's right, because I'm kind of new in the mission, and because I've only been out now 9 months. Fife has gone. Landon comes. And the very first night, and I'm kind of nervous. I knew he'd been out on his mission a long time. Wasn't sure what kind of missionary he was, and kind of nervous. And we're just out walking that very, very night. We're out going to do some follow up on some referrals. And Landon Ames, it's been quiet. He was kind of shy, kind of quiet guy, and he just said, he says, "Yo, the Pattenden." I says, "Yeah. We've just been walking in silence." I says, "Yeah," and he said, "You see that girl over there?" I said, "Yeah, that one over there." He says, "Yeah." He said, and he's doing it as slowly and deliberately as this. He says, "She called me last night." I'm like, "You've only just arrived. Like, how did you even, like, why is she calling you? Who is she?" And he's like going slow for me, like to absorb this. And he's like, "She called you?" And he's like, "Yeah, she called me." She said, "You're a companion, Elder Pattenden." And I'm like, all right, he's winding me up now. He's like, "Yeah." She said, "He is so fine. I want to throw him down." So is this mission? Is this brand new zone leader companion that I've got? And there was no better way to break the ice for me to realize he was not a stiff. He was kind of a fun guy, and he was hilarious and a little risque, but he pulled that one on me multiple times throughout the next couple of months serving in Glasgow. And we had some crazy experiences. You meet all kinds of people in Glasgow, right? There's the whole world is right there in Glasgow. All different kinds of people. So I guess so it was Ames first, and then it was Grant, and then I left and went up to Dundee. And right before I left, I had busted my ankle in a volleyball game at Julian Avenue. I'd rolled it, and so I went up to Dundee on crutches and a big wrap around my foot, and went up to serve with Levi Taylor, where we'd serve for the next 3 months as zone leaders. Great district, loved Dundee, Bingham Terrace ward. We had Elder Brown, Elder Blake Farnsworth were in the district or that zone at that time. It reached down to all of Fife, wasn't it? So you had Galashiels and Kirkcaldy and Dunfermline. We had St Andrews as part of the area. I absolutely loved serving in Dundee, and that whole part of the country was just really a beautiful place to be. Had some cool experiences, met some amazing people. I was only there 3 months, and I was called back down again, this time to Falkirk, and was companioned with Dan Conway, my little ginger Southern English friend. Just kind of two peas in a pod, not in the way that we looked, but just being British boys together. And I learned all the great stories of before his mission and streaking down the beach. And I think he brought that up in his podcast, didn't he? Before his mission, almost didn't come on his mission. We had a lot of fun together. I liked Falkirk a lot. We got there just around Christmas time, and so we were really well looked after by the members there. And then 6 weeks, only 6 weeks went by. He went on. I think he had been trained by Bradley for about 3 months before. So I was kind of follow-up training, and then I came, and then he left, and I trained again. This time, Ashley Devine. So he came into Falkirk. We served the next 3 months there together. Loved Ashley, really, just a good, funny guy. I've forgotten. There's 2 stories that we need to straighten out. I'll go back to Bhutan. Don't forget to remind me. We've got to straighten out a story from Bhutan. But there's one other story that Ashley Devine talked about me getting up and exercising every day and shaking the house with my skipping. Now, he's not wrong. That was true. I'm a big guy, and I decided skipping was a good exercise, and so I did that. But he thought it was a clever idea to fix a pull-up bar to the door frame. What are you seeing this now? Let's see.
We steal your family picture still.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, we did a different picture now. And so one morning I hear this loud thud, which makes me think that there's an earthquake. And it's because his pull-up bar has come down, and here he is. This is how I go upstairs and find him. Now, the reality is that I shouldn't, I should have helped him. I should have done something to check that he was all right. But I said, wait, I need a picture of this.
It looks like it's a shower curtain bar. That's not like a proper, weight graded bar for you to be doing pull-ups on.
Indeed, exactly. Yes, that's definitely not for him. So he may have selectively forgotten that rookie mistake that he made of trying to exercise with a pull-up bar. But I didn't forget.
That's hilarious.
So we served 3 months, had some amazing experience. I think, didn't one of you come to Falkirk?
I followed you in there. Yeah,
Right.
that was
With that-
crazy. I came into an area where you had 9 people scheduled for baptism.
they were good 3 months. Second time training, and we had an amazing branch. People were really getting behind it. We had an amazing world mission leader, Alec Gibb. He'd come and cook us breakfast on Saturday mornings, and we'd have a correlation meeting. That's where we taught and baptized Jane Looker. Chris McDonald. What a character Chris McDonald was. Well, I was also district leader at that time over the Livingston, district leader with Livingston in the district. Elder Kellogg was serving. Has he been on yet? You gotta
not yet. I'm working on it.
So Kellogg, he was serving in Livingston, and we decided to make our own training DVD. And I've still got a copy of this. It'll never see the light of day, so don't even ask. But
come on now, that's terrible. Upload it onto our page. Come on, that'd be absolutely a legend.
We made our own training DVD. So Kellogg had this really neat camcorder with mini discs, mini DVDs, and so we made this training set. And Chris McDonald did some editing. Not Chris McDonald. Chris's girlfriend's brother. The McCormick family.
Yeah, I don't remember his name.
I've forgotten his name. The McCormick lad. He did some editing for us, and so we made these training videos of us teaching and how to teach and how not to teach, and I think Bryce, we never used them, and you never get to see them again. And I think I was embarrassed after I made them, forever let them out again. So we had a lot of fun. I really liked serving them. We had a senior couple. Oh goodness me! Did you hear that, guys? I'm done. A call, please.
You're good. We didn't hear nothing. We encourage the rowdiness of home life, because this is not some professional situation here, Chris.
It was like a death scream. Yeah, chasing each other.
I love it.
So what was I just about to say? I lost my train of thought.
You're going on about the training video.
Yeah, but I was saying we had the senior couple that are Wilsons. You ever meet the other sister Wilson from Australia?
Yeah, they were great.
Well, I absolutely love them. They were a big sense of comfort and just that feeling of having somebody look after you. I really, really loved Elder and Sister Wilson. I went to Edinburgh for the last 3 months. Got the privilege, real privilege, an honor of serving with President. There's a lot of, when I started working for the MTC in the missionary department afterwards, I started to learn more and more about how there's this air of, arrogance and things that people can have around leadership positions in the mission. And I can honestly say that there was no sense of, there was no sense of arrogance. There was just this privilege to live with and serve with President Vreens and to learn from him directly at his feet. Felt totally inadequate and unqualified and unable to be any kind of whole mission leader, but really, really loved being in transfers with him and counseling with him and just having that really close relationship. And I did that with Elder Nielsen from Washington State for 6 weeks, and then Elder Levi Taylor again. So Taylor and I served twice. So he came down from Dundee, and then we did 6 weeks again right at the end of my mission before I went home. And that was fun. I don't have loads of memories of Edinburgh. We were at that time. There had been a time where the assistants had an area in Edinburgh that they would proselyte, and then it went through a transition, and it was decided that they wouldn't have an area, that the whole of Scotland was the assistants' area, and the idea was that they'd go around the mission and they'd just be going on exchanges with all the zone leaders and the new missionaries, and the idea was to try and set everybody else's areas on fire and just support the mission. So I didn't spend loads of time in Edinburgh because we were out and about throughout the mission. But I loved that experience. It meant that I got to become acquainted, at least, with all of the missionaries around the mission in some degree or form. We only had one missionary come in, one sister. I forgot her name. I think I've seen that she's already been on here, and I forgot her name. Anyway, she came in. We got to welcome her, and then I left 6 weeks later. I went home. There was
Sister Cooper.
Yeah. That's it, Sister Cooper. Yeah. And then right as I was leaving, it was the elder Canucci group that came in, and those missionaries the other day that I was leaving. So that's it. That's my travel through Scotland and my experiences. So I gotta go back to Cambuslang again. So Arthur Bhutan, let me give you some context. He tells the story about how there was this amazing lady who would feed us, and she was an investigator, but she wasn't really interested in learning about the church. She just wanted to feed us. She kind of felt sorry for these two lone boys that were just out walking the streets late at night, and so she'd invite us in and she'd feed us, and we try and have gospel conversation. She was Polish. Her name was Bronwyn, and I absolutely loved this lady. But she'd feed us the nicest food. Well, I remember, so I don't know if this will ring a bell, but Bhutan tells the story that she kept feeding us, and that I was taking the food and putting it in napkins and putting it in, you remember this? Away in the bag? All right. Okay. So here's the thing, right? That just made me sound like I was gluttonous and I was trying to take food for later. Okay, that was not what was happening. He had realized early on that there was a cultural custom that when your plate is empty, it suggests you've still got room for more food. So she'd come and she'd ladle up more food, right? He figured that out. That he didn't tell me that. So I was taught, be a good boy, you finish everything on your plate. That's what, I was raised to do. So I finish it. She'd laid it up again, and I'd finish it. She'd laid it up again. And in the end, I didn't know what to do. So I started taking the food off the plate because I couldn't eat anymore. And I started putting it in my bag in these napkins. But he had figured it out and didn't tell me until we'd gotten out there. You were supposed to leave some food on your plate. She'd know then that you were full. So he thought it was funny to watch me keep getting more food. And I couldn't figure out, and I thought it was because I was the fat missionary, that she just kept giving me more food and wasn't giving it to Bhutan. So yeah, I just have to, slightly correct that story. Arthur, if you're listening, you may remember it better now that I've shared the true version.
That's hilarious.
Good. That's good.
I heard we did hear as well that at a period of time after you served in the mission that you were giving insight to the people in the MTC of who was training in the mission. Do you remember doing that?
I very well could have done that. I think I actually got told off for it at one point.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I did. I do. And I also came back and visited the mission because weren't you in Peterhead with my brother not Peterhead in Elgin?
Aberdeen. I was in Aberdeen. Yeah, with your brother.
Both? Was it you?
I don't know that I remember that. I know I would have remembered that, but it very well could have happened, and it's just left my memory.
Well, I came up and visited the mission quite a few times. I came and saw Stuart, and we need to get Stuart on here. We spoke about it a few months ago.
How's he doing?
He's doing really well. He is one of the most courageous people I know. I absolutely love him. He's living in Germany right now and is about to start. He's been performing in lots of different shows. He's just about to start performing in Frozen the musical in Stuttgart, and he's doing well and he's happy, and I'm super proud of him. Yeah, we need to get him to come on. One of the things that this is what I said to him that I like is that you have created a really safe space for people who don't worship the way that they did in the mission field. Everyone's lives have taken them in different directions, and not everyone sees things exactly the same way they did back then. And And I love that you've created a safe space. You know, several people that I know have come on and been able to just reflect on that experience in Scotland and what that's meant for them and what that did for them. And even if that isn't part of their life now, it was a significant part of their life then. And I know Stuart feels the same way and you know, does have great, very fond memories of his mission, even if that's not his particular path now, you know, so.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things that Jack and I talked about pretty extensively as we got into this is like, we can't make it a polarizing situation where we're here to check in on you and keep you, you know, make sure you're on the right path or whatever. That's not our MO, you know. We're here to lift each other and to have fun memories of, one, the place that we spent 2 years of our life in, or 18 months for some of the sisters, and two, recalling the impact that we had on people's lives there, as well as those that we were companions with or surrounded ourselves with that impacted our lives in some capacity. And that's what this is all about. And ultimately being able to share how much we love each and every one of those that served in that mission, because, you know, life has a way of beating the crap out of you, for lack of a better term. And the one thing that we want to share is that irregardless of how much you're just getting beat up, we still love you. You know, we're not a place of judging each other. We want everybody to know that this is a place of love. This is a place of joy. This is a place where, like we said several times, the mission was hard on a lot of people. And so it can be therapeutic to get some of those monkeys off your back and to, you know, share your grievances a little bit, and then ultimately have people, if they want to, come on and either retort or share their experiences beyond that. So it's been awesome. We've really enjoyed that.
Good for you, and I love that, and I love that you've done that. And I've enjoyed listening to people who I know have appreciated that safe space. You know, life has not gone. I don't suppose it's gone for anyone the way that they fully anticipated it did. Nobody mapped out a life and they thought, oh yeah, that's exactly what my life's going to be like. And you know, I included myself in the last 18 months where I wasn't necessarily, you know, wasn't excited to jump on here and start talking about all those experiences for lots of different reasons. But there is one message of hope that everyone should have, and that is that everything is temporary. So whether it's good or whether it's bad. And unfortunately, the good, that means it's temporary, but it also means the bad is temporary. So wherever you're at, you know, just know that it's going to come around to a different time again. It'll be the light shines again, then the darkness comes again, but the light shines again. So
it's true.
Yeah. I do have one go back for you, Chris. Did you mentioned picking up teaching with Dawn in Glasgow? Did that turn into anything?
Not there. Well, so she again moved on us. We kept teaching and teaching. She moved again because of the nature of the work that she was doing to Birmingham. We sent the referral on. I believe it was hard to tell, but I believe she joined the church, and we stayed in contact on Facebook for a little bit, but we've lost contact since. So I don't have an absolute verification that she did, but and we kind of kept in contact early on. But yeah, so again, very, very, very grateful. I was able to, you know, follow that through from my first area, then go back there and keep the teaching in, and then she was able to go on, and the referral worked. So
yeah, there's an interesting, just small part of the mission that has this Chinese, you know, they brought in Chinese speaking missionaries and some of the students who came over and everything. So it's interesting to know about how some of that developed and came about, things that are even happening now. So
yeah,
thanks for that.
Yeah, you've got small little congregations of people that are meeting in Edinburgh and in Glasgow, and I think they did it in Stirling for a period of time as well because of all the university students that were there. That
all over the UK, in fact.
Yeah, really, it's true.
Having them in every mission, they had Chinese missionaries there for a while.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's cool. Well, anybody else you want to shout out, Chris, who we need to get on here? You mentioned a lot of names we still are chasing down, but anybody else you want to shout out?
You need to get Simon White, Kofi Asariado. You need to get Landon Ames, Kevin Nelson. Have you had Kevin Nelson yet?
I've been in touch with Kevin, and he has rebutted me a few times. So if you want to get in his ear, I'm sure that he'd love to hear from you.
Kevin, I've been to see Kevin a couple of times. I caught up with him after the mission because I've been blessed to go stateside for work over the last 20 years. And so I've been to a couple of the reunions and met up with a couple of missionaries over the years. And yeah, Kevin's a good guy. He had a lot of good experience. Red Hawk Gilmore as well.
He's been on.
Alex
I need to go back.
Yeah.
I'm controlling my way through. You got a lot of episodes.
Yeah, we've had some good ones.
And I'm working in Family Search with Tobias Megna. And he was the one that kind of finally ribbed me. So I need to give a shout out to him. We were at a work event together in September, and he gave me a hard time. Said that I really need to get on, and so shout out to him. He got me here. And Christian Menino as well. He was my first assistant when I arrived in the mission, and I remember going out chapping doors with him in Edinburgh. Absolutely love that guy. The happiest Italian you've ever met. And he also works in Family Search in Europe now as well. So we're kind of colleagues working for the church together as well. Charlie Cook. That was another one that came to my mind. Charlie Cook's around the corner. I haven't seen him for a long time, but he'd be great to come on and reminisce on some stories.
We actually had him scheduled, and then a conflict came up, and we haven't been able to get back on the calendar. So
get him back, Charlie.
Yeah, go rap on his door, around the corner, and be like, "Hey, mate, you got to get on this podcast." We'd love to have Charlie. It'd be great.
Yeah. Well, Chris, this has been awesome. It's been great to see you.
Yeah, it's been good to see you both. Thank you.
We love you.
Thank you. I love you both. I love you because of what you're doing. This has been edifying, I think, for a lot of people, for a lot of different reasons, a lot of different ways. Like I said, for me, I've lived my mission the last 20 years, but I realized that that's unique. And when I started listening to your people you're interviewing, that for them to go back, that this has been a real tender mercy and a great experience. So well done.
Thank you.
Cheers for that.
Certainly been edifying for us as well.
Yeah. And enjoyable. I mean, that's definitely it. Like Jack and I chat about these conversations in advance, and it's like we get Pattenden. Patty Cakes is coming on the podcast. Like everybody's going to be super excited to hear from Chris, and it's just one of those experiences. Like we've talked about it several times. You hop into a conversation, and it's as if we're right back sitting in the chapel in Edinburgh. We haven't skipped a beat. It's and we've lived a lifetime since our mission experience in Scotland together, but we're still connected. There's such an amazing connection there that I think that's what Jack and I really recognized as we started this is we just have to put out something that brings people together. And as a result, like the conversations that I'm having, I know for a certainty that Brian Bear is going to listen to this, and then he will call me and give me a rundown, because Brian and I have regular conversations now as a result of these podcasts, because he's listening, and then he calls and will share all of his memories of the person that we've talked about. And I love it because Brian and I have gotten closer through this, and it's amazing. Like that's the joy of this is we have quite a connection through Scotland that there's no other way that we would have connected in this world, right?
It just lasts forever, and it doesn't matter how much time goes past. You see those two flags behind you, and it does something. It stirs the soul in a way. They hear the bagpipes, and you see a kill. You just hear that accent. Pure di brilliant, and you just
that's right. Oh yeah, I was reminiscing with on a recent conversation with Kevin Anderson recently. And as I flew into Glasgow just a few months ago, my wife was recording me as we're like descending into the airport, and I was bawling, like just tears of joy, to know that I was on that soil again. It's such a magical place. Like, you can't explain it unless you've been there, you've lived it, you understand it. It's an amazing place. So I'm glad that that's part of our journey that we've all been on together.
Well said. Yeah. And it doesn't matter how many times you go back, it feels the same. I've been back many times, fortunately, living so close. I was only just back there about 4 or 5 months ago, driving around some of those sites, and it doesn't matter how many times you go back, it still feels that sacred ground. It's incredible.
Yeah. Well, Chris, thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
We'll let you get on with your day, and better late than never. Anybody who's listening,
it was worth the wait, right? It was worth the wait.
It was definitely.
Anybody listening has the same thoughts as Chris about, a little hesitation, we're here for you. We're waiting for you to come up.
That's right.
Yeah.
We're not going anywhere. That's for sure.
Safe space. God bless you both. Thank you so much.
All right. We love you. Cheerio, Chris.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Bye.